Welcome to Malcolm and We, seen exclusively on malcolmpresents.com. My name is Janna Larson, and my co-host, Malcolm Berman, is taking a well-deserved break this week. Our guest today is a returning speaker to talk about a serious environmental problem, and she knows what she's talking about. But first, let me properly introduce this amazing and fascinating young lady. Daniela Gioseffi is an acclaimed American author and activist, and she has made significant contributions through her diverse body of work, spanning poetry, prose, and engagement with social issues. Raised in New Jersey as the daughter of immigrants, her early passion for the arts led her to explore acting and writing alongside her roles as a journalist and civil rights advocate. Through her prolific career, she has published 18 books, including notable titles like Eggs in the Lake and the endearing Women on War international writings. Her writing delves into crucial themes such as feminism, prejudice, and cultural heritage, earning recognition in prominent publications. Her impact resonates globally, with her works translated into numerous languages and a documentary drama about her life screened at universities. As a dedicated activist, Daniela has championed ecofeminism since the emergence of global warming as a public concern in the 1970s. Her impactful 1993 compendium, World Literature on Prejudice, A Global Perspective, received a World Peace Prize from the Plowshares Fund and was presented at the UN, featuring an excerpt on environmental racism by Al Gore. Women on War International Writings has remained a significant text in women's studies and peace studies for over 25 years, and her writings have also appeared in esteemed periodicals such as The Nation, the Paris Review, and the New York Times. She actively participates in organizations including the Sierra Club, ClimateRealityProject.org, EmpowerNewJersey.com, Make Polluters Pay, and Indivisible. A truly remarkable individual, Daniela Gioseffi stands as a powerful writer, a committed activist, and an inspiring figure whose work is sure to have a lasting legacy. And further information about her can be found at danielagioseffi.com and http://www.echopoetry.org. Welcome, Daniela.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Janna. It's getting hard to live up to myself at my age. I'm 84 and I can't believe I'm still here, but on the other hand,
Well,
that's
you're a
all-
young 84. You're a young lady still in my estimation.
you should have seen me when I was young.
I know you were dazzling, and you still
Well,
are.
in any case, looks don't get you anywhere without $5 for a cup of coffee these days. Any case, I'm so worried that there's so little attention on the media now because of fighting to save our democracy, which is really in jeopardy, that the news about climate crisis and the short time we have to save the climate is being ignored by the media. And even the weather reports don't seem accurate because they said rain today and now the sun is shining in the window and blinding me. My main word that I express these days is I feel discombobulated. There's so much to pay attention to. And I've only learned over the last year or so about the problem of microplastics, which I've been trying to educate about because it is as important a dire issue as burning fossil fuels into the atmosphere, because these microplastics that we can't even see with our human eyes are all through our bodies and our hearts and our brains. And we aren't even sure of how much damage they cause, but we do know they're carcinogens. We do know that these tiny, tiny bits of plastic that we can't even see with the human eye are adhering to various toxins, pesticides, herbicides, and they're getting into our bodies. And the research isn't even complete yet about how quickly they can do damage but the most important thing is to avoid them because, of course, as I hope most people know, plastic is a polymer that comes from the petroleum oil industry.
And I bet most people don't make that connection.
They don't realize that Exxon is using its powers of corporate powers, ExxonMobil, using its corporate powers to create polymers, which are plastics. And the more we don't want them to burn into the atmosphere to destroy our ability to breathe, the more they create plastic junk for us to buy and discard, throw away plastic. But even plastic that is considered to be longer lived and not throw away, even that, after a while, if you wash it too much and scrub it too much, starts shedding microplastics. And
Hmm.
the dire situation is, and I want to be hopeful too, but the dire situation is that scientists predict that if we keep creating plastics and polymers, which are the same, at the rate we are doing today, by 2050, the oceans will have more plastic than fish. And of course, we want fish for omega-3.
And they're probably ingesting the plastics in the water
Yeah,
too, as well.
exactly.
So, oh my goodness, is there a
That's the
solution?
problem. The fish that we eat is all full of microplastics already, and yet we need the fish for the omega-3. So the human race is in a big pickle, and it isn't the first time we've been in a difficult situation. But I do think that this particular situation, combining the rise of fascism that's trying to take over with the climate crisis, it makes it very hard for the young, especially the educated young, because
Hmm.
as my father used to say, ignorance is bliss.
That's right.
My mother was uneducated and a happy person, and he knew a heck of a lot about the world and everything, and he wasn't as happy as she. So
Right.
the problem is, how do we stay happy facing all these issues that are such a burden and a threat to human life on beautiful Mother Earth?
Right. So I kind of asked it right as you were talking at the same time because you know, came in on you. Sorry. So
Okay.
what are the solutions besides?
Well, there are ways we can avoid microplastics. We already have them in our bodies, everyone alive. And of course, a person in their 90s hasn't swallowed as much of them as a person who's a 10 or 12. But the best thing you can do is to stay healthy, get enough sleep, good nutrition, eat whole foods rather than manufactured foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, particularly organic, stay healthy, get enough sleep, drink enough water, but not out of plastic bottles, because when you
Right.
the water out of the Poland spring water is wonderful, but if you buy it in a plastic bottle, you don't know if it was sitting in a truck in the sun and you think you're drinking nice, clear spring water and you're actually imbibing about a lot of microplastics. So what can we do? We can't completely get rid of them, but if we stay healthy, we can avoid them as much as possible. So I have actually bought a toothbrush that isn't plastic because when you brush your teeth every day with a plastic toothbrush, which has plastic bristles, you're getting a lot of microplastics in your mouth.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
So you can buy a toothbrush made of bamboo with bristles that are made of bean flour. And when you give a party, you don't have to buy plastic utensils. They're a big no-no. No plastic spoons and forks. You can buy spoons and forks and knives made of corn flour or what do you call the thing when you thicken the thicken the
Oh,
gravy,
cornstarch?
cornstarch. You can buy uh, utensils that are made of cornstarch or corn flour. There are all sorts of products now available, and they're not so expensive as you would imagine, that you can substitute for polymers or plastic. And for example, when you store food in the refrigerator, instead of using plastic ware, plastic container,
Tupperware. Yeah,
Tupperware, we used to have Tupperware parties and think they were,
yeah, it was all
but
the rage.
yeah, they were the rage. But actually, if you buy Pyrex and you're careful not to drop it and break it, it'll last you a lifetime. Instead
Right.
of buying Teflon, which is a kind of poisonous plastic coating, when it gets scratched, it gives off a lot of toxins. You can buy stainless steel for cooking, which will
Mhm.
last you a lifetime. I, example, have a calandra for straining pasta, or if you prefer the word macaroni, I have one that belonged to my great grandmother. And
Ah,
it's still standing up because it was made of stainless steel. So we
yeah.
can buy products that will last us a lifetime and avoid buying throwaway plastic. That's number one. And there are all sorts of things. I even now have dental floss that's made without plastic, because all the dental floss is coated with plastic and it comes in a little plastic container. So instead of that, you can buy dental floss that's made from carbon and recycled, and it comes in a cardboard container, and you're not putting microplastics in your gums when you floss. So there are a lot of products that avoid microplastics that we can patronize, and uh, staying healthy and of eating fresh foods and staying as healthy as possible will combat the fact that you have these microplastics in your body. So that's basically what we can do. And also now, in order to save the planet, what we're beginning to realize is that economics and environmentalism and health, they're all one big issue. If we
Mhm.
don't have a government that protects our water, our air, and our food, then what's the use of all of our organizations? We need to all become part of the great protest against what I call turbo capitalism and fascism, which is trying to manifest itself all over the world now. And for the first time, worse than ever, in the United States of America. We are really plagued by a threat to our democracy. But here's the conundrum, and I wonder what you would say to this, Janna. We have Bill Gates, what we would call a fairly good billionaire, trying to save people with health and vaccination and health organizations. His foundation, he's been all over the media lately saying, I'm going to give up all my fortune to charity before I die. I don't want my
Mhm.
children corrupted by too much wealth. I'm going to give most of it away, except some that I leave to them. And he's working hard to try to save lives in Africa, save lives all over the world. Meantime, you have what we would call the evil or bad, selfish, narcissistic, uh, sadist oligarchs like Elon Musk and Donald Trump trying to kill us all off and go to Mars. So it's a difficult situation because on the one hand, the planet, we now have a population bomb. I remember just thinking maybe 4, 3, 5 years ago, the population of the Earth was 700 billion. And now all of a sudden it's 8.2 billion. So,
Mhm.
and the sad part is the educated people are the ones not having the babies. So it's the poor and suffering who don't have the means or understanding about birth control who are having all the babies, while the educated who might save the climate are the ones not having the babies. So it's a real conundrum of forces that are fighting each other, economic forces, and as usually economics are at the bottom of everything because it's with money that we get our food and it's with food and water that we live. So it's a conundrum of, and it makes me feel, and I'm fairly educated, It makes me feel discombobulated. What would you say to all this, Yana?
Well, it's a dilemma, and it has upset me for years, even before it got to this stage. I can remember being a very young child and just feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders because of,
Me too.
yes, I know we're kindred spirits because of poverty and everything, and cruelty to animals and cruelty to people. And I couldn't even watch Disney movies that had anything with young children or dogs or cats in it, because there was always the expected, plot was that something was going to happen, and there was going to be all this, for me, torture. And then hopefully at the end it all worked out, and it's like, phew. But I mean, I couldn't watch him again because I couldn't put myself through that continued torture. So that has stayed with me my whole life.
Me
And um I know. And now I just think, oh gosh, we're trying so hard, and so many people are working so hard, and I think more people are working really hard than we know about. How many people know about you, for example, which is what I want to change. But I think about you, and I think all that you've seen in your lifetime, all the personal little tragedies that you've had, the stories that you've shared and what you've been through, and yet you've persevered and you continue to keep trying. I think I often do think to myself, I wonder what Daniela is thinking, and how is she coping with this day and this news, and yet she keeps, you're like the energizer, which is another problem.
That's
But
right. Well, Yana, the problem is that even though we have to keep hope alive, because without hope, there's nothing. And so
yeah.
I like to remind people that we weren't even aware when fascism started to take over our country, how many Americans were aware and what huge demonstrations of resistance we would have everywhere in municipalities, in townships, and state legislative areas, and big cities, in Chicago and New York, but in the little towns and uh, hamlets everywhere, people seem to be aware and they're protesting. And I remember, and you will too, of all the demonstrations against the Vietnam War and how we
Mhm.
read about the horrible torture that our government was doing to Vietnamese people. And now we see Gaza and our taxes paying for the 500-ton bombs that are killing women and children because of the tunnels. And we feel upset about the people who are in charge, and some of us feel that people like Netanyahu and Putin and Trump and Musk and the three South Africans he came to the United States with, David Sachs, who's into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and his other pal was Peter Thiel. And with
Mhm.
Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, when they came, they founded PayPal and made a fortune. And now they're
Mhm.
working to destroy our democracy. It's such a complicated world where, of course, I have relatives who suffered the Holocaust because
Mhm.
like many Americans, I'm a mixture of many cultures, and I was a multicultural pioneer for that reason. And when I look at
Mhm.
my grandsons and realize how many different cultures they come from, I mean, they're a mixture of 10 different cultures. That's what's America. And now we
Mhm.
see the immigrants being treated badly, even though many of us came from immigrant heritage that built the country. And we remember the saying on the Statue of Liberty, bring me your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, with Emerald Lazarus, who was Jewish, writing that poem at this. And the French gave us the Statue of Liberty. And we think of
Mhm.
all the complicated history and how Abraham Lincoln had to work so hard before he could pass the Emancipation Proclamation. He had to finagle his way and get enough congressmen and senators to vote with him, and it took him years. And Frederick Douglass was getting angry with him because he didn't hurry up, but he couldn't hurry up because he didn't have the votes. And we see this kind of tension going on right now in our own legislature, with some Republicans finally turning against fascism, a few with this Qatar jet being offered, which is really, I mean, Donald Trump is being made an idiot of to take it because it's just something they want to get rid of because they can't use it and it's getting old and it costs them a mint to store it. So they tried to sell it 2 years ago and nobody wanted to buy it. So they're giving it off on him as if it's a gift when it's really something they want to throw away and get rid of. It's costing.
And they'll have to do so much work to it to make it be, secure enough. And he already ordered a jet, to replace
Got two of
the,
them being built from his last administration by Boeing,
yes,
and they're taking too long to finish. And the one
right,
he's in has already been retrofitted so that it can't be spied upon or crashed or whatever that shouldn't happen to a president. And this, you're right, this particular jet, if he accepted it, would cost billions to refurbish. And,
right.
so it's not a gift. It's just a, I don't
And
need
it's
this old sweater.
illegal.
So
It's
take my old.
illegal. It's illegal for him to accept it. So
And even
it's,
some of the Republicans are now saying this is crazy to accept it.
yeah,
And what it did is it blanked out all of his good news about any diplomacy he tried. You didn't hear about it. All you heard about is this garbage jet they're trying to pan off on him as if it's a gift. And he's
right.
stupid enough to say, why shouldn't I take it? It's free when it'll cost the American taxpayer billions
He
of dollars and
he
take
doesn't care
years to
about that.
refurbish. The world is
Yeah.
nuts. It's going
It's going nuts. It's going nuts. So when you're talking to your fellow residents there where you live, because I know that that's what you're doing. You're being active, giving talks, and I mean, I would call it in the old days holding salons, to educate your
Well,
fellow.
actually, there's a big auditorium with a bunch of people, but I also go to the Ethical Culture Society of Essex County, and I gave
Uh-huh.
the microplastics talk there. And during the pandemic, I was giving talks via Zoom at all the public libraries in New York and New Jersey with my friend who founded the environmental department of Seton Hall University. So we two women were going everywhere. I was giving the inspiration, she was giving the science. And I had my degree from or my certificate from the Climate Reality Project and Al Gore. So I
I have one too.
do have one too. That's how we met
All
at the
right.
climate. And
Yeah.
I saw that Al Gore gave a marvelous speech. And also last night I saw on the news that Bruce Springsteen gave a marvelous speech against fascism in the United States and all the harm
Yes.
and chaos being created where they're threatening our Social Security and our Medicare and our Medicaid
Mhm.
to give taxes to the rich. And the environmental problems get lost in the mess of it all. So I wanted to also go back to the fact that we can win. And if I can, I would like to give you the story of how we kept hope alive and stopped a nuclear port in the harbor of New York many years ago and shut
Yeah.
down Indian Point. Years ago in the early 80s, I think it was. It's hard to keep all these dates.
Back last century.
A few decades ago, an attempt by the US government while Ronald Reagan was president to put a nuclear base on Governor's Island in New York Harbor, just a short distance from the Statue of Liberty and the big metropolis of the city. There is an island called Governor's Island at the foot of Manhattan. You could take a ferry across in less than a half hour. And they wanted to put Tomahawk nuclear missiles on Governor's Island, which was an abandoned old island no longer in use that the governor used to use, I don't know, during the Civil War or World War II or something. So we banded together with Jesse Jackson, who was a progressive politician at that time. His slogan was keep hope alive. That's still my slogan, keep hope alive. So we banded together. We had marches, demonstrations, all the environmental groups got together. We worked, we demonstrated, we handed out flyers, we went on the media, we did all, and we won because now Governor's Island, instead of being a nuclear base, is a playground for artist galleries and children's playground and restaurants and food vendors, and you can take a lovely walk among the trees there. You could take a ferry across from Brooklyn Heights or a ferry across from the foot of Manhattan, and you can just spend a day in the sunshine or the rain in this beautiful playground with artist galleries in all the old buildings, with playgrounds for the children, with restaurants and food and ice cream instead of a nuclear base. So the people can win. It took us a
Mhm.
long time to stop the bombing of Cambodia. I have another story about being among the people who persuaded the Senator Javits to vote against the bombing of Cambodia when I met him at an artist party named Larry Rivers was giving a party. I was a young, blithe spirit. I went to this party. I got dragged into the kitchen, and all the guys there said, "Look, you're the prettiest woman here. You have to go convince Senator Javits to vote against the bombing of Cambodia." And so I was dumb and blithe. I didn't really understand politics the way some of these people did. And they explained everything to me. And I went out there and I flirted with Senator Javits. And what do you know? He voted against the bombing of Cambodia. And I don't know if it was me or a bunch of other people persuading him. But my point is, if we form a community, we don't have to all agree on every point. But if we form a community that says save Mother Earth, limit polymers and plastic, don't buy a lot of throwaway plastic. If you need water, buy a stainless steel container that'll last you a lifetime, and you won't be drinking microplastics when you drink your Poland Spring water, when you drink out of a plastic bottle that you just bought and you're going to throw it away. So there are so many things we can do to keep hope alive because sometimes the people do win. And recently, we had the conservatives voted down in the UK, even though they're saying that Keir Starmer is not as good as he could be for the Labour Party. He's still not a conservative fascist. And we had somebody win in Australia recently who was anti-fascist. And we have governors running in New Jersey who are anti-fascist. And we have blue states around the country that are still working on the environment and not giving up the way the great governor of Washington state, um, Governor Inslee, he's the only guy who ever made his whole platform about climate crisis when he ran for the presidency. And he made Washington state one of the most ecological states, women's rights, all the good stuff. And he said, don't give up working on the environment. You can matter locally. You can matter in your town. You can matter in your family. And as Confucius says, if you want to put the world in order, start with yourself and your family and your friends, your municipality, your town, your state, and then finally your federal government, because we can build a grassroots movement from the bottom up, like Bernie Sanders and AOC and all these people who are on the side of saving the planet and who are with the Sunrise Movement and the Climate Reality Project and all of these other wonderful organizations. They can coalesce in these demonstrations that are happening on June 14, No King's Day, June 14.
Well, we just have a couple more minutes to keep it to our usual length. But Daniela, I totally agree with you. It's important to keep hope alive because hope is what we do have, and that comes from within, and we join together in hope. We can make a difference. And I was just had a thought while you were speaking. I wonder if you would could maybe we could see what we could do to get you to be a candidate for the Democratic ticket for the presidential. The
I
next,
don't think I'm up to that, but I am going to vote for a woman here in New Jersey who's good on the climate and good
oh,
on
good.
the environment. And I just want to tell you one quick thing. I know I talk a lot and I should give you more of a chance to ask questions,
No,
but
I love to listen.
one of the things that I've studied lately, and you can look it up for yourself in good science sources, women have larger hippocampus, which makes them naturally more empathetic, and they have a better memory for emotional and sensational events in their lives. and that makes them more empathetic. Generally speaking, you can't generalize because there are wonderful men who care, and femininity and masculinity are on a scale from 1 to 10. And there are some men that are more feminine and some women who are more masculine. But generally speaking, the feminine brain is more capable of empathy. So when Carl Sagan, the great astrophysicist, reviewed my book, Women on War and Survival in the Nuclear Age, and we were fighting to shut down Indian Point because it was leaking radiation, what I learned at that time is that he said, why isn't the half of the human race uh, charged with nurturing and birthing the half of the human race not poisoned by testosterone, never invited to the peace table talks of the world? So maybe things would get better the more we elect women. There are wonderful men who are peace lovers too. You can't generalize, but I was fascinated to learn quite recently that women, or the feminine brain, is generally more empathetic. And this world needs a lot more empathy right now than it needs sadomasochism, and than it needs
Toxic masculinity.
narcissistic sadists is what
Yeah.
Trump and Musk have been diagnosed as. So thank
Wow.
you for inviting me, Janna. We are kindred spirits.
We are, and again, it has been so educational, and even though we're talking about an unpleasant subject, you still have presented your information in a delightful way, and we are lucky to have your presence here. So I thank you very, very, very much. We will stay in touch, and I wish you all the best things in life, and of course continued good health, and thank you so much for everything that you do, because we all benefit, and it starts with you, it starts with me, and it starts with each of us. And what a joy and what an honor to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janna. Thank you very much. And I thank you for all your work as well. We're kindred spirits, and we're going to keep hope alive and keep fighting for Mother Earth.
Yes, we are. Go Earth. Thank you. And thank you for being with us today. You will be able to see our Zoomcast on malcolmpresents.com and on YouTube. And there will be an audio on our Buzzsprout podcast called Malcolm and We. We've been talking with Daniela Gioseffi, and we thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you.